Hello, and today I want to talk to you about a book that has easily become my favorite book of all time, and that is The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. Wow. I finished reading this book several weeks ago, and it was so incredible and gorgeous, and I love it so much that I want to talk to you about it today. The majority of this video will be spoiler-free, but if you don't want to know anything about this book, then you should probably go read it first and then come back to watch this. So, The Book Thief takes place in 1939 Nazi Germany during World War II, and it follows the main character, who is a young girl, about 9 or 10 I believe, and her name is Liesel. She goes to live with foster parents, and on the way over there, some traumatic event happens, and she ends up stealing her first book. However, she doesn't know how to read, and so having stolen this book, she starts to want to learn how to read, and so her foster dad teaches her how to read, and over the course of this book, she learns how to read more, she steals more books, and she grows this overall love of books, reading, and words. Probably my favorite aspect of this book was the writing. It was so beautifully written, and sort of unlike other books, because the narrator was Death himself. And I know that sounds kind of like it's going to be really dark and depressing, but it's actually not. I found it to be really fitting during this time and just overall. So the narration was really stark and blatant, and there's like some obvious foreshadowing in which the narrator basically tells you what's going to happen before it happens. And at first, I thought that was going to hinder the overall effect that this book had on me, but I found it to actually bring out even more emotions. Like, reading about something that is going to happen is like, oh my god. But then when it does happen, it's like, oh my god. It didn't take away any of the heartbreak of experiencing the events as it's actually happening. And I just think that's so amazing that a writer can be able to do that. The writing was beautiful. There was a lot of metaphors, but they were perfect. They weren't overdone. It was just really powerful words and sentences. I wanted to quote this book and, find quotes that I liked about it, but I couldn't do that because the entire thing was just too beautiful. The characters I found were real, and they showed their strengths and their weaknesses. Over the course of this book, they grew gradually. It's not very obvious at first, but when you really think about it, how it began and how it kind of progressed, you can see the growth of these characters and how they're having to deal with this world that they're living in. Liesel was a great main character. She is a smart and clever girl. She questions everything about the world. Growing up in this time, she had to kind of juggle between doing what she thinks is right and doing what is necessary. And that gave her a lot of strength and realism. Her foster dad, Hans, was a really great character, probably one of the best parents I've ever read in a book. He is faced with these obstacles that he kind of has to overcome mentally. He really had to think things through as real people would, and the answers are not so cut and dry, and sometimes there's consequences to ways things happen. I know it kind of sounds random right now, but if you've read the book, then you understand what I mean. Another great character was Rudy, Liesel's best friend, who you can see slowly progress through the book. He goes from being this wild kid. He just wants to do what he loves doing despite the pressure of this world that they're living in. And as he grows up, he starts to realize that in order to survive in this type of a world, you can't be that completely. You have to, rein it in. I thought he was a great secondary character and best friend to Liesel. He is a hyper young boy, and he really wants Liesel to kiss him throughout the entire book, but he never overdoes it. He always respects her, and I think that's a great thing to show. Max was probably my favorite character because through him you can kind of see this overall wisdom from having gone through the things that he's gone through. He's really smart and wise, but he also holds on to this bit of innocence, and that shows through in his illustrated stories that he does. I thought it added a great childlikeness to this book that is overall kind of harsh. I really, really loved the stories throughout this and the illustrations. I thought they were great. I loved how he works with what he has overall in his life and with this creative aspect. He also shows a lot how words can be so powerful. He shows this through his character and through his stories that he creates. I really enjoyed the overall mood that this book gave off. I think the whole book aspect of it just makes it feel kind of warm and cozy despite the time period that it's taking place in. We watch Liesl grow from not knowing how to read and wanting to, and she learns how to and grows this love of books. And it kind of is inspiring to make me want to read books and to learn as much as possible, to question society. And also Max's drawings throughout this were inspiring to me as a writer, artist, to encourage me to want to keep drawing and writing. And it was kind of empowering in a way to see how these characters can read and do what they love during this time and work with what they have. Even though it's a rather big book, it sped by at a really nice speed where you're able to absorb everything that's going on, but it doesn't take forever to get through. The last 100 to 50 pages were really emotional, and of course if you read this, you know exactly what I mean. A lot of stuff goes down near the end, stuff that is foreseen and stuff that isn't. It's just oh my god. I couldn't put it down. It was tearing up at some points. I kind of didn't want this book to ever end. I think it ended beautifully. It was just great, the last bit that happens with Liesl, later on in the future, was just a perfect little ending to this book. After everything that has just happened, it kind of adds that bit of hope to it. But I just kind of wish it went on forever. I kind of wish I could just keep reading this book, a never-ending book. It just keeps going on and on. It kind of was dark, but only how it had to be because of when it takes place. Overall, it was just beautifully written, emotional plot, great realistic characters. Naturally, I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Also, this was the biggest book hangover that I ever experienced. After I read this, I didn't want to read anything. So I have a written review up for this book which explains in more detail. It's on my Goodreads and also on my book blog, which I will link in the description. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know what you thought of this book if you haven't read it or if you are possibly going to read it now. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye!